Živijo, tukaj je Anže, poslušate podcast Aparatus, kjer legitimni člani družbe povejo, kaj počnejo v življenju. Aparatus ima od zdaj naprej tudi sponzorja, tako kot pri gostih sem upal, da bom za sponzorja dobil neko normalno oziroma legitimno firmo. To se je tudi zgodil, tako da sem zdaj ful vesel, da lahko rečem, da Aparatus podpira Third Frame Studios, podjetje, ki je sicer locirano v Kranju, sicer več ali manj poslujejo s tujimi partnerji. Kaj točno delajo, lahko najdete na njihovi spletni strani www.trifas.si. So pa cool firma, ki je hotela pač podpreti Aparatus. Jaz sem jim zato ful hvaležen, pa tudi jaz sem vesel, da sem dobil enega sponzorja, ki razume, kaj jaz tukaj počnem in je toliko družbeno odgovoren, da podpre eno tako zadevo, kot je Aparatus. Tole pa je 39. epizoda Aparatusa, o kateri sem govoril z Metom Aleksandrom, ki z Majkom Hrlijom, ki je že bil gost v Aparatusu, ustvarja podcast Bionic, ki je v zadnjem času postal zelo popularen. V enih od zadnjih epizod sta se pa norca delala tudi iz mojega imena, ki ga pač Angleži in Američani res ne znajo izgovoriti. Poleg Bionica pa je Met še ustanovitelj startupa NIT, ki je zdaj dobil zadostno financiranje in bo kmalu štartal, in piše blog 137.net, kjer umirjeno govori o tehnologiji. Preden začnemo, pa še enkrat hvala vsem, ki ste dali oceno Aparatusu v iTunesih, že 69 vas je, to dejansko pomaga, tako da če tega še niste naredili, bo kakršnakoli ocena tam dobrodošla. Seveda pa hvala vsem še, ki mi pošljete kakršenkoli feedback na mail anze@aparatus.si oziroma na Twitterju @anzet. Evo, zdaj pa Met. I have like 2 old Nokia phones here because I'm going to use them as Wi-Fi routers for when I go to the seaside.
That's a good idea. I did the same thing when I went to San Francisco for WWDC for the past 2 years. I always call AT&T and get a review unit, and it's always like a Nokia Lumia something. And it comes with, and it's prepaid data and everything, so I use them for tethering when I'm at coffee shops and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, well that Lumia is kind of high end because I have here I don't know what the hell. It's I think it's the 5800. I think that was the number. I think it was the first touchscreen Nokia.
Huh.
It was my mom's.
Oh wow.
Yeah. No, because there's this app that some Finnish people did. It's called like Joiku Spot or Joiku Spot. I don't know. It was basically tethering before it was built into the system.
Oh really?
Yeah, so you can get that. I think it's $10 or something, and then just put in because my folks are going to Croatia, so I bought them a data SIM card from Croatia, and then they can fill it up themselves.
Oh right.
It's a no hassle thing. So they don't call me with instructions every 2 days when it like craps out or something. They kind of know how to handle it. So
sure.
And that was making noise, and now it's off. I think yes, it's off. So I don't know. Maybe we already started. I'm never sure.
It's up to you. I'll leave it up to you. I've been clicking around and stuff, and moving around and stuff, but I'll be quiet when we actually record. Or if this is it, then
I think this is it.
Oh, we're
basically. So my first question is always the same, basically, because who are you and what do you do?
Okay, I'm Matt Alexander. I'm a writer, an entrepreneur, and a podcaster.
Yeah, which is where I first heard of you, I guess.
Oh, really? The podcasting portion?
Yeah, basically. Through Bionic.
Sure.
Because, I somehow found Mike, and then, and then I'm an Android guy, basically. So Bionic was right up my alley.
Sure.
Really. Yeah. Because I had to return the Sony Xperia Z tablet today,
really?
Like literally this morning. So, and that's kind of fresh on my mind. So I'm going to talk to you we'll go through Android and Bionic first and then move to the other stuff. That's okay.
Sure.
So, like, when I talked to Mike, he said you basically didn't want to do an Android show at first.
No, I didn't. He, it's almost exactly a year ago, actually, since Mike originally came to me with the concept. He came to me just prior, because tomorrow's July 4th, and that might date this, and I'm sorry. But it was around that time last year, I was about to go down to the beach for the day, and I remember he had come to me with this idea, and he said, I'm really interested in doing a show about Android. I'd love for you to host it. And I had never used an Android phone full time, and I had never really been involved in any of that stuff. And I just sort of said to him, like, what's the point? I don't know what I'm talking about in that space. And he was very persistent. He kept coming at me for a few weeks. And basically, my compromise with him was that I was very interested in hosting a show. I'd been on Command Space, what was then the Bro Show. I'd been on that a few times. And I'd been on a few other shows, and I was really interested in the medium. And I said to him that if we could have an even-handed look at not just Android, but all competing ecosystems in the technology world, and we could be the guys that sort of act as a bastion of even-handed, logical and rational looks at what the competition is doing, then I would be very interested in that discussion. I'd be very interested in doing that show. And that's really how we got off the ground. And he really tried to push it to be really Android only at first. But I laid down the law, and we, and now we're about to hit episode 50.
Or you already did.
Well, we thought we did.
Well, yeah, you thought you did, basically. That was awesome.
Mike thought we did.
Yeah, well, we should blame him, basically, for that one.
Blame Mike for everything, really.
Yeah, well, that's true. But where does the whole this is such a stupid question, because this should be how the world works.
Right.
But where does the whole even-handed kind of viewpoint from your side come from? Because that's not really the norm online these days.
The trouble on the internet, particularly around certain brands, and even outside the internet, is that people are very tribal in the way they look at the things they purchase and buy into, and it's a defense mechanism for justifying purchasing habits. So if you buy into Apple and you keep buying apps therein, then there's this natural inclination for you to defend that ecosystem and thereby defend your purchasing. So online, it's exacerbated because people have the ability to just say whatever they want to an audience that they've curated of people that have similar opinions. So the danger is you follow all people on Twitter that believe that, say, Apple is the best company. All the people that follow you believe the same thing. And it's very easy to end up in this false sense of security that all of your opinions are perfectly balanced and correct because you're saying things and no one's challenging them. So when I started my site, 137, that's about a year and a half ago now, the guiding concept behind doing that, and the reason I started writing again, was because I saw so many people that were just outright defending Apple when Apple doesn't really need a defense. They're one of the biggest companies in the world, and people don't need to be babying them and adopting this extreme philosophy that they're the best company out there. And I really wanted to come out and talk more about, anything ranging from things like artwork and interior design and literature all the way to technology. And I've ended up predominantly talking about technology because it's been so difficult for me as someone that likes to look at the broader landscape to watch. So I was writing all these articles, and it turned out to be quite popular. There's a subset of people that are really interested in that sort of philosophy and looking at it from a different perspective. And really, the genesis of Bionic was in my site, and that's the reason why Mike wanted me to do this. I think it was actually Stephen Hackett's idea to get me to do.
Yeah, I think he said Stephen recommended you, basically.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that, you see, I think that whole tribal mentality, right, is a lot more prevalent when it comes to technology.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, and do you have any idea why that is?
I don't really know. I think it's something to do with that, justifying purchasing and investment and stuff like that. But also, it's just because when it comes to technology, it's easier for people to say whatever they feel like online with no ramifications. There's no accountability on the internet for the average person using Twitter. For the person that doesn't necessarily have their face or anything as their Twitter avatar. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but there's a certain degree of anonymity, and with anonymity comes a lack of accountability. And I think a lot of people just get away with adopting extremist opinions in some respects for justifying and gaining attention. In other respects, just because they can. So I think it's just polarized, and I don't think there's any good reason why, but it bothers me on a very, very deep level. It sounds like it does you too. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same way. Because I write for a tech magazine, right? So, and I kind of try to avoid that sort of, even the language those people use, the my phone and, the whole, I don't know, it gets too personal for me. It's at the end of the day, it's just a phone.
Right.
Yeah,
no. That's one of the things I always try to write about is, if you refer to it, like whenever I'm writing an article and I'm talking about my life, I never actually say what phone I use. I never say, on my iPhone. I always say on my phone. And then on Twitter, I always talk about people arguing over the type of telephone people use, because it just sort of puts it in context a little bit.
Yeah, basically, yeah. But when you started writing the site, so the idea was to just kind of, do whatever you wanted to do. But how has the frequency of the writing been? Because, you kind of disappear for a while and then you come back with 8 articles, one after the other.
Yeah.
And how does that work?
So, I started the site in November 2011, and basically I had run a site when I was younger that was really quite successful. I wrote it under a pseudonym, from about when I was about 11 to 14 or so. And
that was the GameCube demo site, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
yeah, that's awesome.
And it did really well, and sort of had 1.5 million uniques a month and stuff, which is
insane in those days.
Yeah, and I had corporate sponsorships, I had everything, and so I kept it secret from everyone in my life. I never talked about it, and so I was working a corporate job in 2011. And I got this sort of itch to break out into the startup world. And in America, I studied English literature at university, amongst other things, but that was my focus. And in England and in Europe in general, that is seen as a core subject that's valuable for any number of careers. But in the US, it's seen in a very reductive way as this very constraining, pointless endeavor. So I had this itch to start writing about startups and about technology and about various ecosystems, just purely because I wanted to justify and show that there was a lot more to me than just this degree, and that my insight and acumen in the business world was just as astute as what I might have to say about a piece of literature. And so the site started, and I was doing it I had a corporate job, and I was just doing it part-time, so the frequency was fairly consistent then, because I'd be in an office and I'd have time to write, and it would fit in with my breaks and my lunchtime and whenever I finished work and things like that. Then April last year, I left the company and started my own company, and from about then onward, finding time to just sit down and write, it becomes increasingly difficult, because I'm always wading through email and whatever else. So more recently, it's basically the site, the traffic, if you look on a month-by-month basis since I launched it, has continued to increase every month since I launched it. But the frequency of me posting has dropped off completely since probably last April. So there's been a strong correlation between me writing less and more people reading and subscribing. And basically, I've moved all of my sort of ephemeral, pointless links, things that I don't necessarily have the time to write about, to Twitter, and that's where I put a lot of my inane commentary, and I joke around it and I'm snarky. But then on the website, I sometimes there's just something that really weighs on me, and it's I have to write about this. So last week I wrote about change, and that really came out of nowhere. I just woke up on Friday morning, was really frustrated after all my arguments with Mike on Bionic about the Xbox One and PS4 and all this stuff, and I just started writing. And it came out, and then that ended up being this huge article that ended up, Tech Meme and Hacker News and all that sort of stuff. And that's really how the site works for me now. It's just the same as it's always been. It's a personal outlet for my opinions that I really care about, and it's a very visceral sense of how I feel about business and the world. But it's turned into this thing where I only go there to use that platform and that mouthpiece when I feel that I really have to. And people seem to respond well to it. I don't know. I mean, how do you feel about it? I don't know. I haven't really spoken to any readers about it, I suppose.
I actually like the site, because it's one of those, it's in my RSS.
Right.
So, but when you write, I usually just stereo right away because I know it's going to be long.
Yeah,
which is kind of no, that's not meant as a adjectives.
Right.
Yeah, no, I just assumed that it's going to be a long post, and then I just start it, so it kind of it waits for me there because everything else it's usually shorter. That's why I like also Chris Gonzalez's side on Retrofied. That's kind of the thing because I just know it's going to be something a little longer, and it's not the thing you do like with the morning coffee and stuff, when you just kind of go through stuff. But yeah, I really enjoy the site. I think that's why I'm talking to you basically because I like the podcast and the site. So yeah,
that's very nice of you.
But the next thing I wanted to ask you because if we go back to a Bionic, so. For the past year, I guess, you've been following Android a little bit more. Ever since you got the Nexus 7, basically.
Yeah,
right?
So, we got the Nexus 7 right when I first joined. Or right when we first started Bionic, it came out.
But so, what was your experience with the before 4.0, before the Android 4.0 versions of the operating system?
Fleeting. I'd had samples. At the time... It was when I was really sort of focused on potentially trying to turn 137 into more of a full-time endeavor, and I had sponsorships with AT&T and things like that, so I was getting sent phones, but they were underwhelming at best for me. I mean, they were interesting, and there wasn't necessarily anything really wrong with them, and I wouldn't judge anyone for using one, but it was just, in comparison to iOS at the time, for my use case scenario, they didn't really match up completely. It's much different now,
Yeah, but I don't think there was a use case scenario where they would match up because I think 4.0 was the one because I got to review a lot of them.
Sure, I mean,
and I held out with my Nokia N900, the Migo one.
Oh, really?
Right. I still have it, dude.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's actually my primary vacation router.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, because it still has like 32 gigs of internal storage, and the camera is still pretty good. So I just take that on vacation every time. So, but yeah, I stuck with that until the Galaxy Nexus. Yeah, that was the first 4.0 phone, and when I got that one to review, I said, this is pretty much it now.
Yeah, I mean, I remember really early on when we were first starting Bionic, and we both really started looking long and hard at 4.0 and everything that was going on in that ecosystem. And I remember saying something that actually proved to be quite controversial in terms of people writing back to us and everything. And I said that in many respects, Android 4.0 is Android 1.0 for the broader public. It's the first version of Android that reaches an acceptable point of polish and usability and design that makes it a really, really viable and really, really interesting competitor in the marketplace.
Yeah, and that exact point I wrote in my first column I got for the magazine.
Oh, did you really?
Last month, seriously. I wrote about the whole Android ecosystem and the fact that 4.0 was the first thing where you could actually recommend the thing to people, like to normal people.
Absolutely.
Because before that, it was just, the whole HTC Desire phones and the Desire HD, which were like beautiful pieces of hardware, basically. But they ran like 2.3 or 2.1, and that's just, it was pointless at that point, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that was when arguments about fragmentation and things actually really mattered, because it was an actual detriment to the ecosystem. These days, we see a lot of people with these same sort of critiques of the ecosystem, but you can always tell when someone hasn't used Android in a long time or hasn't really given it a fair shake, because they bring out these age-old arguments that were relevant 2 years ago that have no bearing in reality anymore. And that's really what the show's all about, and it sounds like you're on the same page too.
Yeah, the thing is, I think a couple of months ago we did this for the magazine. We did this big comparison of the low-end Android phones.
Sure.
And it's amazing what 4.0 can do on a device that basically sells for nothing. Right. You can get the Sony Xperia Tipo or what, I don't even know what it's called, but it's like this tiny little phone, and it just has 4.0 on it, and it's like miles ahead of any Desire HD and all of those phones. And it's just, you can always tell when people just think it's the old Android and the new one kind of, it's not the same thing anymore, and it's kind of hard to explain to people.
Yeah.
So, since you do know Android and you live in iOS, basically, when normal people ask you which phone to get, Like, is it still like the iPhone still the first thing you say, or has that changed now?
No, I mean, a lot of the questions I get is typically the question isn't, should I get an iPhone? It's, what would it be like if I bought like an HTC One? And a lot of people, especially in England, actually, people at home I found are starting to increasingly use all these different phones. People I know out here, some of whom are shareholders in Apple and stuff, keep coming to me because Apple's been going like through all this PR crisis over the past year because, you know, they're stagnant and there's no innovation and blah, blah, blah. But that's the genesis of that philosophy and that outlook on the company comes from the broader public, not necessarily from people like us. And those people are coming to me increasingly and saying, I have a phone upgrade right now, and I was thinking about waiting for the next iPhone, you know, later this year. But then I saw, you know, this HTC thing, and it's really, really interesting. And I'd say to them, honestly, like, you know, you wouldn't do badly if you got one of these, and it's really worth looking at. And, you know, for me, it's not the default recommendation anymore just to get an iPhone. It is for some people, like my mum, for example. Yeah. She's still using like a BlackBerry and stuff. And for her, I don't think Android's quite at a point of readiness for her. But I think for younger people, people that are relatively comfortable with that have been using an iPhone for a while and things like that, I think in many respects, moving to Android would be a step up for them. So I've been treating it like that. But I mean, I'm still happy to recommend an iPhone. I use an iPhone full time. I'm probably going to buy the unlocked HTC One soon. But I think it's way more open now. I think the recommendation isn't as clear as it used to be.
Yeah, I'm the same way, basically. Because, for my mom, although my dad inherited my Galaxy Nexus, and he's he's really happy with it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I never thought that, because he used to not be able to send a text, basically. That was the level. Yeah, basically. And now he mails and stuff. So, yeah, I'm pretty pleased now.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So that's why I wanted to talk. I wish I still had that tablet here, but the thing is, I don't know how familiar you are with Android tablets. I'm guessing not that, except for the Nexus 7, which doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I follow the news, but I don't use any of them.
Yeah, I actually own a Asus Transformer Prime.
Do you
with
really?
The keyboard. Yeah, because that was when I gave my Windows laptop to my mom.
Okay.
And then I just built a machine from scratch, and I use like Windows, and I think I have a couple of Linux versions on it, basically.
Sure.
But so I needed something portable, and when I saw the battery life of the Prime with the keyboard dock, that was it, basically. Because I ride a lot, like when I go for the weekend, I have to ride, and I just got tired of carrying like a heavy laptop. Sure. And that thing is just so small, and it has like an 18-hour. I don't even know like how long
really?
the battery.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, because there's two batteries. There's one in the tablet, and then there's one in the dock. So it's insane. I mean, and it costs pretty much the same as an iPad. But you know, the keyboard makes more sense because it's kind of closed. It's like a clamshell. It basically looks like a little laptop.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the only reason I bought it. It's kind of slow and stuff. So I've actually been using that, and then like last week I got that Sony Z tablet.
Okay. Yeah.
And that thing is pretty damn awesome.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I saw The Verge gave it quite a high review.
Yeah, I think that's the like 4.0. Like that Sony tablet is the first Android tablet that I'd actually recommend to people.
Well, the real thing, and this is obviously very cosmetic, but the Sony tablets look really good.
Oh, I think the Xperia Z, the phone, and they're the best looking hardware right now.
Yeah,
I mean, for me, it trumps the HTC One as far as I'm concerned. But it's a mistake. Yeah, because
it's not in America yet.
Oh, it's even the phone, or
it's about to be on. On T-Mobile, I think. But
yeah, it's this. Sony has this understatement in their design, and then they just kind of started with that whole silver button. The on-off button is silver and big.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw that, and it looks sexy as hell to me. Yeah, and the tablet is basically just like the phone, but bigger. It kind of has that 80s vibe, but modern. I don't know really how to explain it. But the thing is, it runs really, really fast and smooth, and like it's everything Android should have been on a tablet like 3 years ago, and it wasn't.
Right.
And this one actually works, and it's the first. So see, you should get one, like just to test out.
Yeah,
you two should talk about it like as soon as possible, because I think it's the same thing. You know, when you use the Nexus 7 and it wasn't awful, basically. Right. Yeah, it's the same with this one. It works. It kind of gets out of your way, and when you run Chrome and the tab sync and all of that stuff, it's awesome, basically.
Right.
But yeah, so I don't know. That was my portion of the.
Sure.
But I really wanted to kind of mention that because I just had it and it's kind of fresh. You know, I'm writing the review before we started talking. I was in the middle of it, basically.
Well, that's interesting. I'm definitely keen to try out. It looks great and everything, so I'm excited to read your review and everything. If it's online, if it's in English.
Yeah, I haven't translated anything. I'm thinking about the columns I'm going to write now because I'm going to do that once a month, I hope. So maybe I'll translate those.
Yeah, that'd be
fun. If I'll have the time. Yeah, basically.
Be great.
And another 70 decibels fact. I got the 70 decibels shirt around the same time they told me I could have the column. And you have to take a picture for the column. And it's not just like a face picture, you know, the whole like a passport thing next to the column. I actually stand next to the text in the magazine, and I wore the 70 decibel shirt.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll tweet you a pic, and Mike, you'll see. I just got I got the magazine a couple of days ago, and it's hilarious.
I love that. We were just Mike, Stephen Hackett, and I were just out in San Francisco. Mike Schechter was there as well, and. It was hilarious because we'd be walking around just the general vicinity of WWDC, and we'd just come across people wearing 70 decibel shirts. And it was the most amazing feeling. And so we'd go up to, I remember we were at Jim Dalrymple's party, and I can't remember his name, and I really hate myself if I can't remember his name, but there was one guy there that had on a 70 decibel shirt, and he just knew all the inside jokes from all the shows and everything, and it was just awesome. It's really exciting. So I love that. So
that was the party where Mike did karaoke.
Yeah, I have a full video of it that I haven't released yet. But
so you have something longer than the Stevens Vine.
Oh yeah, I have like 2.5 minutes of it.
You have to release that.
Yeah, no, I guess
well, you have to. That's
Yeah, I don't know. I was right at the front, exactly where Stephen was. We were all standing in the crowd. It was me, Stephen, the team from Studio Knee, and a bunch of the guys from The Verge. And you can see when I'm filming it that I keep turning around to talk to these guys, and I freak out that Mike is singing at the top of his lungs. And so the camera keeps turning and going right into Stephen's face. So it's a great video. It's a great video.
But that has to see the light of day, basically.
Yeah, it should. No one's seen it yet. It's just me.
Oh, you see, you're holding a treasure there, basically. That's awesome. So we have to talk about the whole dynamic of you and Mike on Bionic, because I did radio for a long time, and that's kind of rare. That's basically the thing I'm most attracted to, which sounds weird, but yeah, about the show, because that's kind of rare. So did that develop over time? Because I got into you guys, I think with like episode 3 or something, and it's kind of been pretty consistent. It's gotten better, but was it like that before you started doing the show, or did it just click when you started, recording?
Yeah, I don't know. Mike, when he first invited me to be on the Bro Show, I was still relatively new online, and I had to go out and buy the mic, and I had to buy all that sort of stuff. And I remember thinking, Mike was this sort of god among podcasting men. And so I was messaging him, making sure I had everything set up and everything. And we sort of chatted on that first show with Terry. And then after that, we were still friends on Skype and everything. And we just kept occasionally chatting about the news and everything. And we really got on. And we just sort of stayed in touch quite frequently after that. And then when it came time to do the show, I was really nervous about it because, it was launching this thing that I hadn't been so sure about at first, and then I'd sort of manipulated it into my vision of what it should be. And so I had a lot of ownership and accountability over it. And so in probably episode 1 and 2, I remember episode 1, I rarely spoke at all. But it really sort of congealed into this really, really fun environment. And he and I met in person, I think right around when it launched. In fact, it definitely was, because I was home for the Olympics last year. Mm-hmm. And that was a few episodes in, and we just got on really well, and so that really helped. And I don't know, he's always been very supportive, because I remember at the very beginning, I kept saying, I'm a huge amateur at all of this, and he really helped me sort of understand. And as I probably betrayed at the beginning of this show, I don't do any of the recording, I don't do any of the editing, I don't do anything. I just show up on Skype and I put together our notes, and that's about it. And recently Mike's been doing the notes because I don't have time. So I don't know, we have a fun relationship. All those guys at 70 decibels, we all get on really well. It's like we've known each other for years, so we have the latitude to yell at each other on the show and disagree, and then also joke around about tearaway trousers and sexy cruises and whatever else.
Yeah, so, but why was not that the show title?
Oh, God,
I don't, it's Mike's fault.
It was in
right?
the list. It was in the list, and when we finished recording, I said, I think we should call it Tearaway Trousers, and he was like, we're going to have to call it Fake 50, because I can't have a show on 5x5 called Tearaway Trousers.
You see, I'm going to tell him that should not happen. You guys still have to be rock and roll, even if it's 5x5.
I agree.
Yeah, because, he's going to turn into the man now.
Oh, God, basically. He is the man now. I'm thrilled for him. Mike, has been working tirelessly to build this brand with 70 decibels, and before 70 decibels, he was doing these shows, and he, people, it's more common knowledge now, but he works a full-time corporate job every day, and then he records on a schedule to meet with all of his co-hosts, all of which predominantly, with maybe one exception, are in the US. So he's always on our time zone. He's recording with us. He barely sleeps. He has a serious girlfriend too. I don't know how he manages it all, but in a very short time, he's managed to really sort of come towards the realization of his dream. And with Command Space, it's performing just outrageously well at the moment. And he's just really beginning to master his craft. And I think he's in the right place now. And I'm really thrilled for him. So I think it's a great thing.
Yeah, same here. So we should talk about our part of the internet, I guess. But I wanted to ask you if you could, if you had to list 5 people that people should pay attention to, right? Who would those 5 people be?
5? 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't care if they have a site, a podcast, or whatever. Just, the 5 people you actually follow religiously, basically.
People I read and pay attention to their opinions?
Yes.
Okay, so there's Matt Buchanan, who writes for The New Yorker now. He and I tend to have very similar opinions about a lot of stuff, and I'm really fascinated by his insight into the industry, and he's doing some amazing things with the way The New Yorker covers technology, because it's all long form, and it's all really insightful, and they're in no rush, so I love that. Let's see. Always Sean Blanc, just because he and I are friends. He helped me a lot when I got out into the indie sort of world, and he's pioneered a new way to monetize his content. It's a model that a lot of other people are trying to reappropriate now, but Sean is the master of it, and he's got a lot of amazing ideas in the pipeline, and I have a lot of respect for him being a multi-talented guy that has some good metered takes on what's going on in the industry.
Yeah, I love his side also.
Yeah, he's great.
I have to get him on here somehow.
Oh, you definitely should. You should reach out to him. I'm sure he would. I'm trying to think. This is difficult.
Yeah, that's why I wanted 5, because everybody can do 1, 2, or 3, right?
Yeah. It's difficult. I'm gonna have to let's have a look here. Let's see. Who do I read? I'd say Federico Vitici.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Just because he's an obvious choice, probably. But
he's also insane, probably. I don't know how that guy sleeps, works, and does stuff.
Yeah, he's on the U.S. time zone. He sleeps on the U.S. time zone. It's insane.
Yeah, I heard the Command Space episode, and that just seems crazy to me.
I have no idea how he does it.
He's a zombie, basically, at this point. He has to be. There's no other explanation.
Yeah,
I love his stuff anyway, but that's insane what he does.
Yeah, he's a really good guy.
Also, let's just say Berlusconi and jacuzzis. Just so we say it.
Just so it's on the record.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. I don't even know how that whole dynamic started, but that's a lot of fun.
Oh, you two are my favorite people on Twitter when that got started. Because we neighbor Italy. Right. Slovenia neighbors Italy, so I actually know a lot about Berlusconi because it's close. We get the news and stuff. So yeah, it's always.
I studied. One of my main thesis papers I wrote in university was on Italian politics, specifically to do with Silvio Berlusconi, and the whole sort of humor around it originated just because I was really fascinated by his whole story, but then it turned into this whole thing on Twitter. With Federico, so it's a lot of fun. I don't know, it's great. Let's see, another person, Ellis Hamburger. He is a writer at The Verge. He was originally focused on Facebook and social and sort of apps, but he's getting more into telling long-form, interesting stories about what's going on in the industry, and he seems to have a very even-handed take. He's sort of seen as the nice guy in our industry, and I have a lot of respect for that. Mm-hmm. He's still very new, and he was just on Command Space recently, so people should listen to that. But I've met him briefly, and he's a very, very nice, very, very insightful person. And then fifth, I'd say, is Matt Honan, who writes for Wired. And he's a guy who I've been following for years with his takes on technology. He was at Gizmodo for a while. He's moved around, but he always has a very interesting take on the industry, and he's not afraid to say something controversial. So he has been writing this sort of ongoing theme of articles. Whenever someone announces a new phone, whenever there's a big press event, he's always the first person to say, the iPhone 5 is great. It's a feat of amazing engineering. It looks amazing. I'm sure it's a great, great phone. I'm sure it's lightweight, whatever. But it's just deeply, deeply boring. And he's been doing that about most of the major product releases.
Yeah, I saw that.
He's just, and people take it as trolling and it's not serious, but it's actually a very, very intelligent argument he repeatedly makes that we as consumers and as tech enthusiasts aren't pushing for people to do innovation anymore. And it's something that it's a topic and it's a philosophy that I think a lot about, that we are far too quick to appreciate, a new iPhone or the next HTC phone or the next Nexus phone just because of what it is rather than what it does and what's good about it. And we don't judge these things objectively anymore. We don't look at them in a vacuum. And he's one of the only people that's really trying to do that. And I think it's really, really valuable, underappreciated, and people should definitely pay attention. And all these guys are great on Twitter as well, by the way.
Yeah, I follow all of them, I think. So from the five guys you actually follow, we have to talk about someone who I know you're not a fan of, and I'm not a fan of, but this talk, like our conversation is going to go into my Slovene feed eventually, I think in August. So, and I try to persuade people not to read Business Insider, and you know who I'm getting at now.
I was wondering what this was going.
Look, that was one of the things when I said, maybe Matt Alexander's like the real deal, basically, because he's insane, right? I mean, I don't know how would you describe Blodgett, basically?
He's our generation's greatest philosopher, and his writings will be reflected on by future generations and studied by academics. So.
Yeah, but the thing is, you see, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because when we talked about your side, right, you do this whole measured approach with the long form stuff, and you kind of read the same guys, and then he's like the anti all of that.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't, where do you think that comes from? That whole model of page view stuff? Because the thing that struck me the most was when I think Dan Frommer, I never know how to pronounce his last name. He's the guy that does Splat F. Do you know him?
Yeah, no, he's he was a very close contender for my top 5.
Yeah, well, you see, he started Business Insider, right?
Right.
And I don't understand that. That breaks my brain every time.
It was different though.
Was it really like at the beginning when it was still? I think it was called something else at the beginning, right?
Yeah, I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, but was it really that different? Because I have no recollection.
I mean, I've never made a habit of reading big sites like that. It's like to me, it's like if you're reading that really seriously, then you're probably missing out on some really, really good metered takes somewhere else. It's the same with like Mashable or something, where they're just spewing content out. But I think Business Insider originally was founded as a means to provide modern business news in sort of a quick and easily consumable way for the more modern reader. And I think there's a lot to praise about that. But I think a lot of what's happened with these publications that have been around, like the CNETs of the world, that have been around since, the early days of the internet, I think they've seen this ongoing evolution and change in the way people consume content, the way people can monetize content, and the way it's shared and distributed online. And I think Business Insider is the manifestation of what would happen if you saw the way people acted on the internet and tried to remodel your site around each and every one of those habits. So it's the sort of thing where they're watching people and saying, well, they don't like reading long form stuff. If they click more, we can do more ad impressions. People like slideshows. People like infographics. People like all this sort of stuff. I think it's just it's the chain restaurant mega huge menu. It's the Walmart of news. They're trying to do everything, and there's no signal. It's just noise, and I think it probably works in many respects for them. I know a lot of people that pay very, very serious attention to them. And with regards to Blodgett, he's obviously a very intelligent guy. He was a stock trader. He got done. He's not allowed to trade anymore. But he's obviously a very intelligent person, and him writing the way he does is obviously a conscious choice he's made. It's a business decision. It's a persona he's adopted. It's much like Sam Biddle writing Valleywag. I don't get the impression that he is quite as scathing as he is on that site in person, but these people are paid to adopt a persona and to really rapidly pursue that online. And I think that's what it is with Henry Blodgett, which in his case, though, I just can't palate whatsoever, as is hinted at by the way I tweet about it. But yeah, it's just pandering. It's just pandering content. It's not good. There's nothing good about it. But they do serve a use. I don't want to be too disparaging of them. But Henry Blodgett and the way he writes.
That whole, I got a newspaper to my hotel door article, right?
Well, the worst one he wrote was, why do people hate Jews so much?
Yeah.
And he wrote another one that was like, why can't women do this sort of work or something? And it's like, I made the joke at one point that he must just go to Google and write, why does this happen, sort of thing, and just wait to see what comes up. And he's like, oh, okay, I'm going to write about this today. And it's just insane. Everything, like, who has a great, if anyone needs to catch up on the pontifications of Henry Blodgett, Gawker.com has this great backlog of looking very, very deeply into what on earth he's talking about. And yeah, so.
I'll find that link. I'll find it and put it into the show notes if I do. Okay, so I'm doing this thing now where I ask every guest, right, what's it like where they live? Because, I'm just some guy in Slovenia. I always do this intro because I don't know how to ask this question properly. But the thing is, I listen to all of you guys on podcasts and whatnot, and I never really know where you live, what your surroundings are like, what's life like in Dallas and stuff. So that's my question. If you heard one in there.
I just moved to an area in Dallas called the Design District. I just got a new office. So I'm in this sort of artsy sort of area. Dallas in general is a very corporate city. But there's this burgeoning startup community. And so I have a startup which I recently funded. And so I'm building that in this community of sort of artists, photographers, thinkers, writers, all these people that are just genuinely trying to do really, really amazing stuff. So I've moved out. I lived in an area called Uptown, which was very much just sort of bars and people working in banking and finance and things like that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I just didn't fully fit in. And so now I'm living in this area that's just over the other side of the motorway from there. And I'm just surrounded by art galleries and people doing really, really interesting stuff. So, this morning before we got on the call, there's a coffee shop right outside, right next to a hairdresser and a bar, all of which I use on a fairly frequent basis. And I went outside and I went out on the patio and had a cold brew coffee and did my email on my phone, and then came back up here to record. And that's often what I'm found doing. It's just sort of I try not to be working, in my apartment too much, and I've only just got the office. I've been working in a co-working space, but now I've got like a closed door office because I'm hiring people. So that's pretty much it. Except the one thing I should add, the giant caveat to sitting outside and stuff, is that it gets to about 105 Fahrenheit here every day during the summer. Which is
what? Which is 45?
Yeah,
40?
It's 40.5.
Oh, wow.
I had some friends of mine from England come to visit a few years ago, and it was when I was still in my corporate job, and they went out during the day to go get groceries. So they went to the supermarket, they walked, and they literally called me and they were like, "Can you come pick us up? We are stranded at the supermarket. We cannot walk back with all this stuff. We will literally die," sort of thing. And I had like 2 or 3 hours left in my workday. I was like, I can't come right now. Like, can you get a cab or something? They're like, "No, we'll wait." And they literally sat in the supermarket for the entire time because they didn't want to walk home for it was only like a mile. And but yeah, so it just gets ridiculous here. So that's where I am. I'm involved in this new startup community here, which is really, really fun, really, really healthy. Just lots of really good stuff.
Yeah, we should talk about need.
Yeah, we should.
So what is it? Like, what's your pitch, basically?
The pitch. So, I mean, we're not giving away too much at the moment. We're still a few months away from launch, but our venture partners in Germany wanted to announce that, they were involved, and some of the names of people that have joined my board and things like that. So basically, on a very high level, Need is a hybrid between a magazine and a men's retailer. So it's all about curating and finding the very best products, whether they're limited edition or custom made or co-branded with us, or they're things that guys just don't have the time to find, and selling them, mixing it together with some really interesting editorial and photography, and localizing it to where you are in the world, and defining the tone based upon the creative communities and the writers and the photographers in your portion of the world. So it's not going to redefine anyone's industry, and it's not disruptive in the way that Amazon was for e-commerce, but it's a niche product that's built on the tenets of building a sustainable business and making a profitable and revenue-driven business model. So we're venture-backed, and there's this huge stigma around that, but we've built it to be this really sustainable and interesting and fun and healthy project. And we've got, founding member of Guild Group, which is a big e-commerce property, and he was one of the main guys behind Expedia, and he's now the CEO of Travelocity. We've got huge financial personalities from Europe, and we're in talks with people that I can't talk about now, but who are very interested in coming on board. And when I was out in San Francisco, we're looking at our next round and the next sort of money we're going to be taking in, and we showed them all our prototypes and everything, which are now ready, and everyone's just very excited about it. So I'm sorry I can't share too much, but it's a lot of fun. It's a good thing, and I'm hopeful that people are going to enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed building it and everything.
So when do you guys plan on releasing or shipping? Or
I mean, I don't want to sort of define a date too specifically, but we're aiming for later this year.
Okay.
One strong hint would be that I'm going to XOXO, and I would be surprised if we didn't do something around that. So that's about as specific as I can be.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I just I love the logo, by the way. The whole N with the I love that because my dad's a designer, so I kind of pick up on stuff like that.
Oh yeah, we've got loads more design stuff. We haven't been able to share any of it yet, but and that site. So here's a little anecdote that no one's heard about yet, is that the page, like needlifestyle.com, that you go to and you can put in your email and whatever else, I didn't know we were going to be putting out PR on that Monday, whenever it was, 2 weeks ago or so. So I had to scramble overnight to set up all the MailChimp and all that sort of stuff. So that is just a Squarespace page. It doesn't have anything to do with our actual site or branding or anything. I just had to like throw together a Squarespace site and set up MailChimp and everything. So I guess that's exactly what working in startup is like. But yeah, so we'll have a lot of like the branding and all that sort of stuff that's gone into it, our packaging, everything like that is genuinely amazing work. Not done by me. Sort of coordinated by me, like sort of directed by me. But yeah, so excited to share more soon.
Okay. Then we're going to go to the last portion of the whole thing. And that's, I usually ask people what hardware and software they use.
Sure. Which
basically means which, computer and phone and tablet and whatnot. So your hardware.
Okay. I have an 11-inch mid-2012 MacBook Air. Which is connected currently via Thunderbolt to a 27-inch Thunderbolt display.
You actually sprung for you wrote about that because you didn't want to get the monoprice stuff.
Yeah,
right?
Sean Blanc and I, off the public platform, were going back and forth about this because he was a big believer in just going for the cheap option and waiting for a Retina 1. And I kept saying, I just can't bring myself to do it. I'll save money, but I just can't do it,
Yeah, I actually remember you writing that if you bought a Dell or a monoprice, you'd just be thinking the whole time, why does it have that logo?
Yeah, it would just bother me. And, and I get it. And like the amount of times I had one of the monoprice ones or a Dell one in my cart and I was ready to check out was just innumerable. This was going on for like a year. and I just couldn't bring myself to do it. And then I finally, it was actually one of my investors came by my office and he was like, he saw my laptop and I have the 11-inch just because I travel a lot. And at the time I had a 15-inch Pro and a third generation iPad and they were just kind of like, why do you have all this? Back then it was too heavy. So my investor came by and I have this 11-inch which kind of overcompensated for lightweightness. And he was like, why do you have such like a small computer here? How can you get any work done? I was like, I get plenty done. And he was like, you have to go get a monitor and blah, blah, blah. So I went out and bought this and that was enough of a push that I felt justified in buying it. So, so I have that and then iPhone 5, 16 gig, which is now running against all good.
You didn't. You actually installed it. Oh, wow.
I did. And I did because what happened was the lock button broke on it. And so I had to go to the Apple Store and they just gave me a brand new one. And I never restore from iCloud or anything like that because iCloud is a nightmarish hellscape. And so, and I back up everything to Dropbox in terms of photos and everything, so I really don't care. So it was fresh and it was just completely empty and you can downgrade to iOS 6 and I was like, I'm going to do it. And I've had it on there since, I guess it was Monday night. And so I've had 3 days or so and it's been great. It's been working fine. Although it does seem to send text more than once to some people, which is troublesome. But otherwise, it's been fine. And then also, being the idiot that I am, I have iOS 7 also installed on my iPad Mini.
That's insane.
Which is an LTE iPad Mini. So
you're a brave man.
Yeah. So I'm all Apple stuff. All the iOS devices I have are running iOS 7, which is insane. It won't stay like that. On the iPad, it's awful.
I bet it is because they didn't even mention it in the keynotes.
Yeah, I actually ran into an Apple engineer at a bar in San Francisco soon after the keynote, and I said, what's happening with iOS 7 for iPad? Is it going to be on time? And he was like, hell no. All they've managed to do so far is get it to compile, and now it's out. But I don't know if it'll ship on time. We'll see, I guess.
Wow, that's
Yeah, and then outside of that, the only other thing that's like immediately around me that I carry around is I have a Sony NEX6 camera which I got recently for the business, and That's about it, really. I don't carry too much. I never carry my iPad with me. I carry physical pen and paper. And then, yeah, so that's about it, really, in terms of, like, primary hardware I have.
All right. Then the software, this is my question. Like, the apps you actually use. You can just, like, 5 or 10 that you, not the, flavor of the month stuff, the stuff that you actually use.
Okay, so probably the biggest change I've had recently is that I've been a diehard Sparrow user. I've been acting as if it didn't die and whatever else. But recently I've moved to Airmail, which is a newer Mac app for email, which is really, it completely rips off Sparrow's design, but it carries it further, and it's more modern functionality, and it's actually being actively improved upon. And I'm really excited about it. So I'm using that. I live in that, Tweetbot for Mac, and Instacast for Mac. I rarely use, everyone's really focused on these apps for iOS, but I don't use my phone as much as I use my Mac. I get more work done on my Mac than I could ever on an iPad or an iPhone. I do most of my writing in IA Writer. I listen to music in audio. I have OmniFocus on all of my devices, but I hate it passionately.
Yeah, I've never gotten the hang of that.
I keep uninstalling it and then trying out things again. I'm like, oh god, I have to go back to OmniFocus, but it doesn't do anything, and I actively don't use to-do lists.
That's the best OmniFocus tagline ever. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah, no, it's not. It literally sits there, and it makes me feel better that it's in my dock or it's on like my home screen, and like. It's there, and I feel like, oh, look at all the productivity I have and my workflows and whatever else. Like, Michael Schechter would kill me right now because he wants me to like help out writing for their new stuff, which is awesome, workflowing. But I hate everything to do with productivity and all these productivity hacks and everything. I think it's a bunch of nonsense. I think people should just get whatever they need to do done. And yeah, so I have, but the thing is, I have OmniFocus on the home screen of my phone, my iPad, and my Mac.
That's awesome. That's like a getting things done placebo, basically.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's there so that, I don't have Michael Schechter just apparating into my apartment and yelling at me on a daily basis. Yeah, so I have that. And then outside of that, I do a lot of work in... I use Creative Cloud, so I have all those apps, all the new ones, so Photoshop CC, AI, Illustrator CC, and all that sort of stuff. I use Lightroom 5 for developing photography, along with Visco filters. Then on my phone, it's a lot of the same sort of stuff, Tweetbot, Instacast. I use Visco Cam for photography, which is one of these ones which has been really underappreciated, and they just came out with a newer version, and it's easily the best out there. I work with a lot of photographers and everything, so all these guys that have like 500,000 Instagram followers and whatever else, and they all tell me it's definitely the best. That's pretty much it, really. I mean, in terms of stuff I really, really use, I live in Chrome. I refuse to use Safari because it sucks.
Yeah.
I use Simple as my bank, which I love.
That's still up and running. I just heard about that when they were launching. I never knew if it actually took off. So
yeah, no, they're still rolling out invitations and stuff. But I got on last summer because I'd signed up really, really, really early on when they first put out like the sign up, and I've been using it mostly full time for the past year or so, and for those of us that live between two countries and things like that, they offer free wire transfers internationally. They charge you no fees or anything like that.
Wow, okay.
Which is a huge deal. And they've just added external accounts, and they do all this really smart stuff. Rather than having, a savings account or anything, you set goals which generate interest, but don't sort of disappear from your checking account. It's just, the whole thing about it is there's just a bank done better. So I live in that, and it's pretty great.
Okay. And then my last question is, if you had to pick one like physical thing, it doesn't have to be a gadget, but what it can be, that kind of you felt it was made for you or kind of made your life really, really better. Like, I know the standard like answer is the iPhone, but I've gotten like a myriad of different answers, like from electric kettles to glasses and stuff like that. So you can't.
Does it be an object? Does it have to be electronic or anything?
Yes, it has to be an object. That's the main thing. Something physical.
Let me think. I have this really nice notebook that I always carry around, and I don't always write physical notes, but it's one of those things that serves as a very nice reminder of the importance of keeping tangible, physical, and actionable notes and to-do lists and just thoughts about business and everything. So, when I had the original idea for Need, I was walking around London with Mike, actually, and I'd already had the idea, and I just sort of pitched Mike on it, and he was sort of blown away by the full concept that I haven't shared yet. And he made me go to a shop to buy this new, to buy a notebook. So we went to a pub and sat down, and I wrote down all my notes. And he has a lot of pictures of me doing it, actually, which is funny. So as soon as I got back, though, as soon as I got back to the US, I immediately transcribed all of those notes, which was in that notebook I wrote. We sat in the pub for like an hour, and I wrote about 18 pages worth of notes about what Need would be.
Nice.
And I had the name right from there and everything, and I put it all into this notebook, and so I carry it with me at all times, and it's made with really soft leather. It's made by like a really posh brand. It was a gift. So I won't go into that, but like, I just, in a very general high level sense, I'd say that a nice notebook carried around with me at all times is one of the most important things.
That's a great answer. So we can end there.
Sure.
Matt, thank you.
No, thank you. It was an absolute pleasure to come on. I'm glad we finally got to chat.
Yeah, that's true. I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time, so thank you again.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Tole je bila 39. epizoda Aparatusa. Meta najdete na Twitterju pod @MattAlexander, jaz sem na Twitterju @AnZT. Če ste slučajno naročeni na Aparatus v iTunesih, bo kakršna koli ocena tam dobrodošla, drugače sem pa full vesel kakršnega koli feedbacka tudi prek maila na anz@aparatus.si in pa prek Twitterja @anzt. Evo, to je do naslednjega tedna to. Čau.